now that we took these out to the range and brought them home, we cleaned them up, and when I was disassembling both of them, I was looking, and there are some differences internally in each one of these firearms and externally. So externally, we're going to check that out first. We're going to look at where the muzzle brake is and where the threads are. So if I take this off, if I wanted to, change the muzzle brake, you can see that my threads are actually exposed on this firearm if I have it out. They extended the handguard on the new one. So if you look at the new one, when I take this muzzle brake off, the threads are actually, hidden back inside of the firearm. There is a little lock washer there, so that's what actually holds that all back together. So that's kind of different with the new muzzle brake that they put on the firearm. That's how they're, protecting the threads. I think that's actually good. So if you do run a suppressor or you are changing it in the field, it's going to protect it if you do accidentally drop this firearm or have any issues like that. So we'll pop that back on there real quick. Grab this one. Slide it back on. And everything threads on pretty easily, right? Make sure you're not cross-threading. Get it on there nice and tight. Okay, and I'll tighten those up later with a wrench. Now the disassembly is very similar. We have our pin, we push out. This is the Gen 1. We're able to pull that out from the other side, and we're able to remove that. Now, when I got in here, I did look at some of the components that were initially polymer. I never swapped out any of my components, but the big thing I did notice between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 was the buffer retention. So the buffer spring retention in the tube and everything back there is actually retained in a little bit of a different way. So, come on, there we go. So if you look in the Gen 1, it actually sticks out versus the Gen 2. The Gen 2 is really flush, so it makes it easier to put together. You don't have to push that buffer tube and spring back at all. So it actually changed the plates. So that's not going to be interchangeable between 1 and 2s if you were to damage one. So we just slide this plate out right here. The original one is just a small plate. It really doesn't even matter which way you put it in. So it's flat. So you just slide that back in, that little groove in the back when you are disassembling or taking that apart. Right? And the new one actually has a little tab. When you retain it from the top, and you're able to slide that out past your finger. And it actually has this little tab right here that actually holds that buffer tube back, or else we'd be just like the Gen 1, we'd stick out a little bit. So that was something they changed, something they upgraded. And I, was doing some research and looking at some stuff, and they said that was easier to put together. So when we slide it back together, we don't actually have to push that buffer tube back while we're trying to put it back together. Now the steel components are real nice. You can see where they've upgraded those inside the firearm. It's actually a lot of nice upgrades. Now when we go to the bolt carrier and everything, we pull it out. Now this is the Gen 1. You can see the firing pin, everything. It's still got that two-piece design right there. Now the Gen 2 was very similar. I really don't notice any differences right off the rip. So it looks like if you do have a bolt carrier from the Gen 1 or the Gen 2, it looks like they'll probably actually be interchangeable. So if you have one that wears out or you damage one, you could just interchange those parts. So that's actually kind of cool. They kept a lot of the internals the same. So outside of that, all the other parts of the firearm are pretty much the same. They do have that nice little lug in there, so if you do need to use a wrench when you remove this, your hand guards also, they're removed by removing these two screws on the Gen 2, and it's the same way on that Gen 1. So it's really, really nice. They did upgrade the manual a little bit. We'll throw some pictures out there, and it did give a little bit more description of the parts on these different firearms. So we'll throw these back together real quick. So here's the Gen 1. We'll get that in there. And then like I said, when we push this together, you can see that I do have that little bit of that buffer tube sticking out. So I'll line up the front. I'll get that pushed back, get my pin through. So, you just had to make sure that that was pushed back. Now with the Gen 2s, do the same thing. You get your bolt carrier in there. Give that a little push. But this one should be easier because it's actually going to retain that screw or that buffer spring for us. So that went together really nice, really easy. So we can just get our pin right through there. So assembly is a little easier. You don't have to depress that little buffer tube. But all in all, you've got a lot of the same pieces and parts, just some nice upgrades for that little bit of extra price. We're going to sit them side by side, kind of run through the differences. So what we have here originally, what we all run into is that brace. So this is the SB Tactical brace that we had on the original. The new Extar brace here that they make in-house is a lot smaller. Kind of looks like a little axe. I thought that the less real estate here would really cause an issue for me, but I'm going to tell you, I really didn't notice the difference. I shot great with this. The recoil was great. You really didn't feel anything, even though you do have a little bit less real estate. You still have the nice QD mount in a great spot right here. It's easy for you to get in and out. It works great. I tested it out there with our strap, so that was really nice. We had the same one here. I just left my brace a little bit further back so it was easier for me to get in and out of my QD mount. Now as we continue down the gun, the first thing you come to is those new metal components. So the new trigger guard, or the new trigger, and the new safety, they're all metal compared to the older ones where you had the polymer components. So that's gonna help with wear and tear. They'll probably last longer. You know, I've seen people that have it out there, they've had to swap these components out due to them wearing out. Luckily, ours hasn't worn out yet. Next, we have our Beast 5 systems. The new grip has a nice bit of texture. We shot this in the rain, and I didn't have any problems with grip. The trigger guards are the same, right? So we have that nice high trigger cut so we can get up into that firearm nice and tight. And then we have the original B5 Systems grip. It has a little bit of texture all over, but it's still kind of smooth. The mag wells are pretty much the same as we go through the two. So these are both going to be the same. Where it's going to start to differ is when we get to the handguard. So the handguard on the original one, you can see we had to add those rails if we wanted to. I removed my lower rail because I was having issues with the screws. So I just eventually took it off. Didn't have to really worry about the light that I had on the bottom. What else is nice is whenever we get to the new one, when you take your muzzle device off, your threads are actually protected because you can see right here, they've extended that little bit past that little Picatinny rail. So you can see the differences right there between the two firearms. You've got a little bit more real estate on the front of the gun to grip your hand. So if you look right there, I'm lining them up kind of pretty much even and you're getting that little bit of extra grip. So that didn't really extend the length of the firearm. It just put a little bit more grip for you. You could put a handguard a little further out, maybe get a better grip, help with recoil control or muzzle flip, right? So that's pretty nice. Then we have our muzzle device right here. So this one's really wide. We shot it. It really didn't seem to change between the two. The muzzle flip, this one had a cut on top to help muzzle flip. This one was really sent for blowback to help with recoil when I was doing some research. And I think it did a great job. So, you know, that's a great added value. You know, the other one, it does just have that cut on top, and that's to help that muzzle flip whenever we are firing. So all in all, I think the upgrades are well worth the $30 difference in price from the Gen 1 to the Gen 2. I feel like you get a good overall value for the firearm that you're getting, and we've really enjoyed shooting these two firearms out.
Thanks for watching our video. Make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. If you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel.
Comment below. We want to hear from you. Get more content for family firearm reviews by joining our Patreon and checking out the links